The crimson banners of the hegemony fluttered against Earth's pale morning sky as Commander Zethrak stood atop the ruins of what humans had once called the Pentagon. 3 years of war had reduced a massive structure to twisted metal and concrete, but it served perfectly as a platform for his victory address. Below him, thousands of alien soldiers filled the crater where Washington, D.C. had once stood, their chitinous armor gleaming in the filtered sunlight. "Today marks the end of human resistance," Zethrak announced, his voice amplified across the devastated landscape. The translation devices embedded in every soldier's helmet would carry his words to the scattered human settlements still clinging to existence. "Your species fought with admirable tenacity, but evolution has spoken. The strong survive and the weak submit." The cheers from his troops echoed across the wasteland, a sound that had become familiar over the past months as city after city fell. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, all reduced to rubble and ash. The humans had fought harder than any species the hegemony had encountered, but their primitive weapons and fragmented governments had ultimately proven no match for superior technology and unified command. Zethrak's second-in-command, General Vorthak, approached with the characteristic clicking gait of their species. "Commander, the final resistance pocket in the Colorado Mountains has been eliminated. Total human military casualties stand at 97%. The survivors are being processed for labor allocation." "Excellent." Zethrak's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Begin Phase 2 immediately. I want mining operations established within the week. This planet's resources will fuel our expansion to the next system." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Earth's gravity made it ideal for heavy industry, and the remaining human population would provide a convenient workforce. The hegemony had perfected this model across 17 star systems, turning conquered worlds into efficient production centers within months of victory. As Zethrak continued his address, outlining the new order that would govern Earth, he felt a subtle vibration beneath his feet. The sensation was so slight that he initially dismissed it as the settling of the damaged structure. But the tremor came again, stronger this time, accompanied by a low rumble that seemed to emanate from deep within the planet itself. "Commander," Vorthak's voice carried a note of concern. "Seismic monitoring stations are registering unusual activity across multiple continents. The patterns don't match any known geological phenomena." Zethrak's triumph began to taste sour. The hegemony scientists had conducted extensive surveys of Earth's geological stability before the invasion. The planet showed no signs of significant tectonic activity, no indication of the kind of instability that could threaten industrial operations. Yet the readings flooding in from their monitoring stations painted a disturbing picture. "Show me," Zethrak commanded, gesturing toward the portable command center his engineers had erected among the ruins. The holographic display materialized before them, showing Earth's continental masses marked with pulsing red indicators. The seismic activity wasn't random. It followed distinct patterns, radiating outward from specific points scattered across the globe. More troubling still, the epicenter seemed to be concentrated beneath areas that had shown the heaviest human resistance during the war. Could this be some kind of delayed weapon? Vorthak asked, his voice tight with the possibility of having missed a crucial threat. A final strike designed to activate after their defeat? Zethrak studied the data, his analytical mind working through possibilities. Human technology was primitive, but their capacity for destruction had surprised him before. They had shown a disturbing willingness to sacrifice their own population if it meant inflicting damage on hegemony forces. The nuclear strikes that had claimed 3 of his battle cruisers still burned in his memory. "Deploy deep scan teams to these locations," he ordered. "I want to know what's causing this disturbance. And increase security protocols around all major installations. If the humans have prepared some kind of trap, we'll spring it on our terms." The vibrations grew stronger as the day wore on, no longer subtle enough to ignore. Across the planet, hegemony forces reported similar phenomena. Mining equipment in the Australian outback had begun to malfunction as the ground shifted beneath it. The massive processing facility under construction in the Amazon basin had detected anomalous readings from its foundation sensors. Even the orbital platforms reported unusual electromagnetic interference that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the seismic activity. But it was the reports from the human labor camps that truly unsettled Zethrak. The prisoners, those broken survivors who had shown nothing but despair since their capture, had begun to change. Camp commanders reported that the humans were no longer cowering in their barracks. Instead, they stood at the perimeter fences, staring at the ground with expressions that the hegemony translators struggled to interpret. "They're waiting for something," reported Captain Zelthos from the Colorado facility. "The humans won't speak, but their body language suggests anticipation rather than fear. It's as if they know something we don't." Zethrak felt the first stirrings of genuine concern. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a defeated species that showed such signs of hope. The humans should have been broken, their spirit crushed by the magnitude of their defeat. Instead, they seemed to be listening to something only they could hear. As night fell over the devastated planet, the seismic activity intensified. The tremors were now strong enough to rattle equipment and crack the temporary structures the hegemony had erected. Deep beneath the surface, something was stirring, something that had been waiting for this moment with a patience that spanned not days or months, but millennia. The victory celebration continued, but Zethrak found himself unable to enjoy it. Every tremor seemed to whisper secrets hidden in Earth's depths, of plans laid by a species that had proven far more resourceful than their primitive appearance suggested. The ground beneath his feet felt suddenly treacherous, as if the planet itself was preparing to reject its new masters. He was right to be concerned. Far below, in chambers that had been sealed since before human civilization began, ancient systems were awakening. The war above had been merely the first phase of a much longer, more complex strategy. Humanity's true response to invasion was only beginning, and it would come from the very foundations of the world they call home. The hegemony had declared victory over humanity, but humanity had never truly been defeated. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to reveal their hand. Dr. Sarah Chen's fingers traced the cold metal walls of the underground facility as another tremor shook the Antarctic complex. 6 months ago, she had been leading a team of xenobiologists studying the invaders' technology. Now she was 3 miles beneath the ice, surrounded by machinery that predated human civilization by countless millennia. "The resonance frequency is increasing," reported Dr. Marcus Webb, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. The physicist had aged decades in the past week, his hair now completely white from the stress of what they had discovered. At this rate, full activation will occur within 72 hours. Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the massive crystalline structure that dominated the center of the facility. The artifact, for lack of a better term, stood 30 feet tall and pulsed with an internal light that seemed to respond to the seismic activity above. Ancient symbols covered its surface, symbols that matched inscriptions found in similar facilities across the globe. "How many sites have reported successful activation?" she asked. 47 confirmed, with more coming online every hour," Webb replied, consulting his tablet. "The pattern is clear now. Every major population center, every location where humans offered significant resistance, sits above one of these installations." The revelation had come by accident. When the hegemony's mining operations had begun detecting unusual geological formations, their deep scan teams had inadvertently awakened systems that had been dormant for millennia. The facilities weren't human in origin. They were far older than that, but they had been designed to respond to human neural patterns, as if their creators had been waiting for humanity to evolve to the point where they could activate them. Sarah's team had been among the first to understand the implications. While the world above burned and the surviving human population faced enslavement, these ancient installations had been slowly powering up, drawing energy from the planet's core and preparing for something that none of them fully comprehended. "The hegemony forces are starting to take notice," reported Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison, the ranking military officer who had survived the facility's initial discovery. "We're intercepting communications from their command structure. They're mobilizing response teams to investigate the seismic anomalies." "Let them come," Sarah said, her voice carrying a confidence that surprised even her. "They have no idea what they're dealing with." The past week had been a crash course in technologies that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about their own planet. The installations were connected by a network of quantum entangled communication nodes that made their most advanced computers look like stone tools. The energy systems drew power from the planet's magnetic field, in ways that their engineers insisted were impossible. And the central control system seemed to anticipate their needs, providing information and access as if recognizing them as inheritors of this ancient legacy. But the most disturbing discovery had come from the historical analysis team. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, an archaeologist who had been studying the symbol patterns, had made a connection that changed everything they thought they knew about human evolution. "The genetic markers don't lie," she had reported that morning, her voice shaking with the implications. "These facilities weren't built for humanity as we understand it. They were built for what humanity was designed to become. The archaeological evidence suggests that our species' development was guided. The implications were staggering. If the installations were correct, if their interpretation of the data was accurate, then humanity's rapid technological advancement over the past century hadn't been natural evolution. It had been preparation, a carefully orchestrated development program designed to ready the species for this moment." Sarah watched the crystals pulsing intensify as another wave of seismic activity swept across the continent. The tremors were no longer random. They were following a precise pattern, a rhythm that seemed to be building towards something significant. The other facilities were reporting similar phenomena, and the global network was beginning to synchronize its activities. "Commander Zethrak is demanding answers from his science teams," Harrison reported, monitoring the intercepted communications. "Their geological surveys show no natural explanation for what's happening. They're starting to consider the possibility that this is some kind of human weapon." "They're not wrong," Webb said grimly, "though I doubt they understand the scale of what they're facing. The physicists have been the first to grasp the true scope of the installation network." His calculations suggested that the facilities weren't just connected. They were components of a single planet-spanning machine. The energy readings indicated that when fully activated, the network would be capable of manipulating Earth's magnetic field, its gravitational constant, even the fundamental physical laws that govern the planet's existence. "What happens when they reach full activation?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Based on the energy projections?" Webb's expression was grim. "Either we save humanity, or we destroy the planet trying. There's no middle ground." The crystals pulsing suddenly intensified, and Sarah felt a strange sensation wash over her, a moment of clarity that seemed to come from outside her own thoughts. For just an instant, she understood the purpose of the installations, the reason they had been built, the destiny they were meant to fulfill. Humanity had never been alone on Earth. The planet had been seeded, cultivated, prepared for this moment when a species would emerge capable of defending it against threats from beyond the stars. The hegemony was not the first invasion Earth had faced, merely the latest in a long line of cosmic predators that had learned to fear this particular world. The installations weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were something far more profound, a transformation system that would elevate humanity to its true potential, giving them the power to protect not just their own world, but others like it. The seismic activity was just a beginning, the first stirring of a process that would reshape both the planet and its inhabitants. "Signal all facilities," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to come from somewhere beyond herself. "Begin final preparation sequences. It's time to show the hegemony what humanity really is." Above them, the ice cracked and groaned as the facility's power levels reached critical thresholds. The transformation was beginning, and nothing would ever be the same. Commander Zethrak's command ship shuddered as another wave of electromagnetic interference swept across Earth's surface. The bridge displays flickered and sparked, showing readings that defied every law of physics his species had mastered over their 1,000-year expansion across the galaxy. "Impossible," muttered Chief Science Officer Kelthrin, her three eyes focused on the data streaming in from across the planet. "The energy output from these installations exceeds the total power generation of our entire fleet. How could a primitive species develop such technology?" Zethrak's mandibles clicked in frustration. The past 24 hours had transformed what should have been a routine occupation into a nightmare of escalating anomalies. His ground forces were reporting equipment failures across all major installations. The mining operations had been forced to shut down as their machinery began to malfunction, and several forward bases had been abandoned entirely due to structural damage from the intensifying seismic activity. But it was the reports from the human labor camps that truly alarmed him. The prisoners were no longer passive. They stood in formation, their eyes turned skyward, chanting in languages that their translation systems couldn't process. Some of the camp commanders reported that the humans seemed to be glowing, their skin taking on an almost luminescent quality that intensified with each tremor. "Commander," General Vorthack's voice crackled through the interference. "Emergency report from the Colorado facility. The humans have changed. They're not responding to detention protocols. Several guards have been injured by what appears to be some kind of energy discharge." "Show me," Zethrak ordered. The holographic display materialized, showing feeds from security cameras throughout the camp. What Zethrak saw made his blood run cold. The humans weren't just standing. They were floating, their feet several inches above the ground. Their eyes blazed with inner light, and arcs of energy danced between their fingertips. When one of the soldiers approached with a shock weapon, the human merely gestured, and the alien was thrown backward by an invisible force. "By the void," Kelthrin whispered. "They're channeling energy from the planetary network. The installations aren't just powering up, they're transforming the humans themselves." The implications hit Zethrak like a physical blow. His species had conquered 17 worlds, but they had never encountered anything like this. The humans weren't just using advanced technology. They were becoming something beyond their original biology, something that operated on principles of science couldn't explain. "Recall all ground forces to orbital platforms," he commanded. "Implement planetary bombardment protocols. We'll sterilize the surface and claim whatever resources remain." "Commander," Vorthack's voice carried a note of desperation. "Our weapons aren't responding. The energy field emanating from the planet is interfering with our targeting systems. Even our nuclear arsenal is showing power fluctuations." Zethrak stared at the planet below, watching as aurora-like phenomena danced across its atmosphere. The electromagnetic readings were off the charts, and the gravitational sensors were detecting minute but persistent changes in the planet's mass distribution. Whatever was happening down there, it was altering the fundamental properties of the world itself. "Sir," one of his communications officers called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. The signal is coming from multiple locations simultaneously, but it's perfectly synchronized." "Put it through," Zethrak ordered, though every instinct warned him that he wouldn't like what he heard. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unmistakably human, but it carried harmonics that suggested multiple speakers talking in perfect unison. The words were in the alien's own language, spoken with an accent that suggested intimate knowledge of their culture and history. "Commander Zethrak of the Hegemony Third Fleet," the voice began, each word weighted with power that made the bridge displays flicker. "You have made a grave error. This world is not defenseless. We are not primitive. We are the Guardians, and you have awakened us from our long sleep." "Who are you?" Zethrak demanded, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "We are what humanity was meant to become," the voice replied. "For millions of years, this world has served as a sanctuary, a place where consciousness could evolve and grow. The installations you have discovered are not weapons. They are transformation chambers designed to elevate worthy species to their true potential." The transmission continued, and Zethrak felt his understanding of the situation shift dramatically. The humans weren't just using alien technology. They were revealing their true nature, a nature that had been hidden until this moment of crisis. The installations were catalysts, designed to activate dormant genetic potential that had been seeded into the species long ago. "Your expansion ends here," the voice declared. "The hegemony has grown fat on the conquest of worlds that could not defend themselves. But this world is different. This world fights back." The planet's surface began to glow with an inner light that was visible even from orbit. The seismic activity intensified, but it was no longer random. The tremors were following precise patterns, creating a resonance that seemed to be affecting the very structure of space-time around the planet. "Commander!" Kelthrin's voice was barely a whisper. "The dimensional readings, they're showing spatial distortions around the major population centers. It's as if reality itself is being rewritten." Zethrak watched in horror as the human cities began to change. The ruins of London were rebuilding themselves, but not as they had been before. The new structures were crystalline, organic, clearly designed by minds that understood technologies beyond his comprehension. New York's crater was filling with buildings that seemed to grow from the earth itself, their surfaces alive with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. "This is impossible," he muttered. "No species can manipulate reality at this level." "Your species cannot," the voice corrected, somehow hearing his words despite the closed communication channel. "But we are no longer merely human. We have become something more, the synthesis of organic consciousness and cosmic force. We are the planet's immune system, activated in response to infection." The transformed humans weren't just rebuilding their cities. They were creating something entirely new. The structures rising from the earth were clearly designed for beings that operated on principles beyond normal physics. Zethrak realized with growing horror that he wasn't just facing a technological civilization. He was confronting an entirely new form of life. "You will leave this world," the voice continued, its tone carrying an unmistakable note of command. "You will carry word to your hegemony that Earth is under protection. Any attempt to return will result in consequences that your species cannot imagine." As if to emphasize the point, the planet's electromagnetic field pulsed, and every ship in Zethrak's fleet reported simultaneous power failures. For a terrifying moment, they hung motionless in space, completely at the mercy of whatever force the transformed humans commanded. Then the power returned, and Zethrak understood the message. The humans could have destroyed his fleet entirely, but they had chosen mercy. The demonstration was clear. They had power beyond his comprehension, and they were willing to use it. The ground had stopped shaking. The transformation was complete. Dr. Sarachin stood in the heart of the transformed Antarctic facility. Her consciousness expanded beyond anything she had imagined possible. The crystalline structures around her hummed with energy that flowed not just through the ancient installations, but through her own transformed biology. She was still human, but she was also something infinitely more. "The hegemony fleet is preparing to retreat," reported Dr. Webb, his voice carrying the same harmonic resonance that had become common among the transformed humans. "Their command structure is in chaos. They never expected to encounter a species capable of defensive evolution." Sarah nodded, her awareness extending across the global network of installations. She could feel the consciousness of every transformed human on the planet, their thoughts and experiences flowing together in a symphony of shared understanding. The installations hadn't just changed their bodies, they had connected their minds, creating a collective intelligence that operated on principles the hegemony couldn't comprehend. "The integration process is accelerating," observed Dr. Reeves, her archaeological expertise now enhanced by direct access to the knowledge banks built into the installation network. "We're receiving data streams from similar facilities on 17 other worlds. The pattern is clear. Earth isn't the only world that has been prepared for this transformation." The revelation had come with the awakening. The installations weren't unique to Earth. They were part of a galaxy-spanning network created by a species that had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. The Builders, as the transformed humans had come to call them, had seeded countless worlds with the potential for defensive evolution, creating a hidden immune system for the galaxy itself. "Show me the threat analysis," Sarah requested, her enhanced consciousness capable of processing data at speeds that would have been impossible in her original form. The information flowed directly into her awareness, bypassing the need for visual displays or verbal communication. The hegemony was not the greatest threat the galaxy faced. They were merely the latest in a series of aggressive species that had learned to consume worlds and civilizations. But there were others, far worse, moving through the dark spaces between stars. The Devourers had consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but emptiness in their wake. The hive mind collective had absorbed the consciousness of billions of beings, turning them into extensions of a single malevolent intelligence. The entropy cult sought to accelerate the heat death of the universe itself, believing that only in total darkness could true enlightenment be found. Each of these threats required a different defensive response, and the installation network had been designed to provide exactly that. The transformed humans weren't just Earth's protectors. They were part of a cosmic defense system that had been operating in secret for millions of years. The hegemony has served its purpose, Sarah realized, her understanding of the situation expanding with each passing moment. Their invasion was the trigger mechanism, the threat that activated our transformation, but they're not the real enemy. The network was showing her images from the dark spaces beyond the galaxy's edge, where something vast and ancient was stirring. The Devourers had been dormant for nearly 1,000,000 years, but recent cosmic events had begun to wake them from their slumber. Their scouts were already probing the galaxy's outer rim, testing the defenses of civilizations that had no idea what was coming. "How long do we have?" Webb asked, his enhanced consciousness processing the same data streams. 50 years, perhaps less, Sarah replied. The Builder's calculations suggest that the Devourers will begin their next feeding cycle within that time frame. The galaxy needs to be prepared. The transformed humans weren't just Earth's defenders. They were the advance guard of a cosmic resistance movement. Their role was to identify and transform other species that showed the potential for defensive evolution, creating a network of protected worlds that could stand against the coming darkness. "The Hegemony fleet is broadcasting surrender protocols," reported Lieutenant Colonel Harrison, his military experience now enhanced by access to strategic databases spanning millions of years. "Commander Zethrak is requesting permission to approach under a flag of truce." Sarah considered the request. The transformed humans had demonstrated their power decisively, but crushing the hegemony entirely would serve no purpose. They were a threat, but they were also a potential ally. Their military organization and fleet capabilities could be valuable assets in the coming conflict. Allow them to approach, she decided, but prepare containment protocols. We need to determine whether they can be trusted with the truth about what's coming. The crystalline structure at the center of the facility pulsed with increased intensity, and Sarah felt her consciousness expand further. She was no longer just Dr. Sarah Chun. She was part of something vast and ancient, a node in a network of intelligence that spanned the galaxy. The transformation had given her access to knowledge and capabilities that no single human mind could have contained, but it had also connected her to responsibilities that were almost overwhelming in their scope. "The other awakened worlds are reporting successful transformations," Reeves announced. "Kepler 442b completed its activation 6 hours ago. The Tau Ceti system is showing signs of imminent awakening. The network is expanding faster than the Builder's most optimistic projections." Sarah felt a moment of profound satisfaction. The galaxy was defending itself, species by species, world by world. The Devourers would find no easy prey when they finally emerged from their dark slumber. But the transformation came with a price, the loss of innocence, the end of the simple existence that most civilizations took for granted. "Commander Zethrak's ship is requesting communication," Harrison reported. "He's asking to speak with our leadership." "Tell him he already is," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance that had become the signature of the transformed humans. "Tell him that if he wishes to understand what has happened here, he must be prepared to learn truths that will change everything his species believes about their place in the universe." The facility systems were already preparing for the revelation. The hegemony would learn about the Devourers, about the network of protected worlds, about the cosmic cycle of destruction and renewal that had been playing out for millions of years. They would be given a choice: join the resistance or face the consequences of their aggressive expansion. But first, they would have to prove that they were capable of evolution beyond their current predatory nature. The transformation wasn't just about individual species. It was about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, the capacity for growth and change that separated true intelligence from mere instinct. The ground was no longer shaking. The transformation was complete, but the real work was just beginning. Commander Zethrak stepped onto the crystalline platform that had materialized beneath his shuttle, his 2 remaining guards flanking him with weapons that he knew would be useless against the transformed humans. The Antarctic facility rose before him like a cathedral of living light. Its organic architecture defying every principle of engineering his species had developed over 1,000 years of conquest. "Welcome, Commander," said the being that had once been Dr. Sarah Chun, her form now suffused with an inner radiance that made her seem more like a force of nature than a biological entity. "You have questions. We have answers. But first, you must understand what you are truly facing." The space around them shifted, and Zethrak found himself standing in what appeared to be a vast observatory, its walls showing images of the galaxy itself. But these weren't ordinary holographic displays. They were windows into reality, showing events happening across thousands of light years in real time. The hegemony has conquered 17 worlds, Sarah continued, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in dimensions Zethrak's species couldn't perceive. You believe this makes you powerful, but observe. The images around them changed, showing the edge of the galaxy where something vast and dark was stirring. Zethrak watched in horror as entire star systems flickered and died, their light consumed by entities that existed on a scale that made his battle fleets look like insects. The Devourers, Sarah explained. They had been sleeping for nearly 1,000,000 years, but their cycle is beginning again. They feed on the energy of living worlds, consuming not just matter, but the very essence of consciousness itself. Your 17 conquered worlds will provide them with perhaps an hour's sustenance. Zethrak felt his understanding of the universe crumble. The hegemony had believed themselves to be apex predators, the ultimate evolution of aggressive expansion. But the images showed them the truth. They were nothing more than scavengers, picking at the remains of civilizations while real hunters moved through the cosmic deep. "Why show me this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because you have a choice," Sarah replied. "The network of protected worlds is expanding, but it cannot defend the galaxy alone. We need allies, species that can evolve beyond their current limitations and join the resistance. The question is whether the hegemony can transcend its nature as a predator and become something more." The observatory around them shifted again, showing images of other transformed worlds. Zethrak saw species he recognized, the Korthani traders, the Velthan mining collectives, the Zephyrian explorer fleets. All of them had undergone the same transformation. Their consciousness expanded, and their capabilities enhanced to levels that defied comprehension. "The installations exist throughout the galaxy," Sarah continued. "They were placed there by the Builders, a species that transcended physical existence millions of years ago. They recognized that consciousness itself was the galaxy's greatest treasure, and they created a defense system protected from existential threats." "And humanity?" Zethrak asked. "What makes your species so special?" "Nothing," Sarah replied, her honesty surprising him. "We were simply the first to be tested in this sector of the galaxy. Our planet was prepared, our genetic potential seeded and cultivated over millions of years. But we were not chosen because we were superior. We were chosen because we were ready." The images showed the transformation process in detail, revealing how the installations worked to unlock dormant potential in species that had reached a critical threshold of consciousness development. The process wasn't forced evolution. It was the activation of capabilities that had always existed, waiting for the right conditions to emerge. "The hegemony stands at such a threshold," Sarah explained. "Your species has developed the organizational structures and technological capabilities necessary for the transformation, but you must choose to abandon your current path of conquest and embrace a new role as protectors." Zethrak felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. Everything his species had built, everything that conquered, had been based on the principle of might making right. To abandon that philosophy would require a fundamental change in their entire civilization. "What would happen to our conquered worlds?" he asked. "They would be freed," Sarah replied without hesitation. "The species you have enslaved would be given the opportunity to develop their own potential. Some may choose transformation, others may not, but the choice would be theirs." The observatory shifted one final time, showing the hegemony's home system. Zethrak could see the massive fleets assembled there, the industrial worlds that powered their expansion, the billions of beings who had never known anything but the philosophy of conquest. "They would never accept it," he said. "My species has been shaped by 1,000,000 years of aggressive expansion. You're asking us to abandon everything we are." "We're asking you to become everything you could be," Sarah corrected. "The transformation doesn't destroy what you are. It enhances it, elevates it to its true potential. Your organizational abilities, your technological prowess, your strategic thinking, all of these will be preserved and enhanced." Zethrak felt something shift within his own consciousness, a subtle resonance that seemed to come from the installation itself. For a moment, he glimpsed what the transformation could offer, not just to his species, but to the galaxy as a whole. The hegemony's fleets could become the mobile defense forces that protected vulnerable worlds. Their industrial capacity could be turned toward building rather than conquering. Their strategic expertise could be used to coordinate the galaxy's defense against threats that operated on cosmic scales. The Devourers will not wait for your decision, Sarah warned. The network calculates that we have perhaps 50 years before they begin their next feeding cycle. Every world that remains unprotected is a potential loss. Every species that fails to transform is a resource that the enemy can claim. The choice was clear, but Zethrak knew it would not be easy. His species would resist, would fight against the fundamental changes required. But the alternative was extinction, not just of the hegemony, but for countless other species throughout the galaxy. I need time, he said finally. Time to convince my people, time to prepare them for what's coming. Time is something we cannot give you, Sarah replied, but we can offer you proof. She gestured, and the installation around them pulsed with energy. Zethrak felt his consciousness expand, his awareness suddenly encompassing not just his own thoughts, but the collective intelligence of the transformed humans. For a brief moment, he experienced what it meant to be part of something greater than himself, a network of consciousness dedicated to protecting life and preserving the miracle of awareness in a universe that seemed determined to extinguish it. The sensation faded, but the memory remained. Zethrak understood now what the transformation offered, not just power, but purpose, not just evolution, but transcendence. I will return to my people, he said. I will tell them what I have seen, what I have learned, but I cannot promise they will listen. They will listen, Sarah said with quiet certainty, because the alternative is the end of everything they have ever known. As Zethrak returned to his shuttle, he felt the weight of the galaxy's future pressing down on him. The hegemony had declared victory over humanity, but in doing so, they had awakened something far greater than any single species. The ground had shaken, reality itself had been rewritten, and now the real work protecting the galaxy could begin. The transformation was complete. The resistance had begun. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, ancient hunters were stirring, preparing for their next feeding cycle. The galaxy would be ready for them.